Welcome to Volume 2 of every car reviewed. Go watch Volume 1 if you haven't already. It's a hot rod. What more is there to say? Well, first off, the booster and the exhaust do look really cool. The rear booster looks really clean at the back, a very circular shape, and the exhaust pipes. I actually really like the design of those. They come out from the sides, they go over top of the rear fenders, and they're wrapped around with air filters. They look really clean overall. Then you take a look at the engine at the front. You can clearly tell that's a V8. Big blower up top. It's a really cool looking hot rod overall. And some of the decals it came with were really good. Especially the Metallica one you could get from doing some rather arduous challenges during Metallica's festival season. Doesn't come with any trim colors, unfortunately. And the engine sound is not bad, but a bit generic. So this is the Nissan Fairlady Z, also known by some as the Datsun 240Z, from the late 60s to early 70s. But you might notice it actually looks a little different from how it looks in real life. You can clearly tell Psyonix took a few creative liberties designing this thing. The headlights, completely fictional, though they're heavily inspired by Star Road's custom headlights. Tail lights are also fictional. Closest I can find to those are these aftermarket ones from Loose Fur, whatever. The booster is right at the very back in place of where the license plate is. Looks a bit silly. Most offensive thing for me though is the exhaust. This is something you should know about me. I hate when exhaust is only on the one side. I want it on both sides or right in the very middle where it's symmetrical, otherwise it just triggers me. That's just a me thing though. I don't think there are many people out there that share that same kind of OCD sentiment. Overall though, it's still a cool looking car. I'm glad this is in the game for a bit more of Nissan representation, and it is still a fairly iconic JDM car, just not one I use often really, honestly. Now I unfortunately don't own this car. Yes, that's right, this is one of the very few cars in the game that I don't own. I'm not about to grind Rocket League for hours on end just to try and get this thing. But I will try to judge based on what I can find of it online. So here's what it looks like. Looks pretty wild, doesn't it? Like, I really like the exhaust on the sides is a vast improvement over the original model. Front bumper looks pretty wild. The eyelids on the headlights, those also look pretty aggressive. And the halo-shaped daytime running lights, I like those too. Here's the rear end. The diffuser looks insane, so does the big spoiler. Taillights look pretty much the same, as well as the weird booster in place of the license plate. I do wish I could have owned this car, it's just I don't like playing Rocket League that much. It's a very cool looking car though, I wish I had it, yeah. This here is probably one of the most beautifully faithful recreations of a real life car I've seen in Fortnite so far. Like this is clean. The front bumper is still looks a little jarring still, but that rear bumper is just beautiful. That is very clean. This car overall is a very faithful recreation of the real thing. So is the engine sound, of course. It's got a few decals to go with it. They're fine. They're not great, but they're fine. Also, here's the interesting thing about the Nissan Z here. The booster is actually completely hidden inside the rear bumper when it's not in use. Like you straight up can't tell it's there. But when it's in use, it pops out. This is a genius design idea to preserve the car's outward appearance while still retaining the use of the boosters. I think more collab cars should do this, really. Sure. Okay, basic ass design aside, this car is heavily based on the De Tomaso Pantera. That's a car I actually wasn't familiar with when this car first came out into Fortnite. At the time, I thought this looked like an old Honda NSXR. Kinda looks like one if it was front engine instead of rear engine. This car does look rear engine though, like storing all its junk at the back. Why is the front end so long though? Looks like it's got a big ass V8 in there, or a V12, I don't know. Engine sound? It kind of sounds like a Chevrolet Camaro. And the decals? That's actually probably the best thing about this car, because they actually look awesome. Some of them are themed after that Miami synthwave aesthetic from the 80s, and I just love these decals. They look awesome. Like, these are probably some of the best customizable decals in the game. They definitely make up for this car's simplistic design, I think, in most cases. So in terms of all the original Rocket League cars that got imported into the item shop, this is actually up there with the Samurai as one of my favorite of these cars. Like, I actually really like how this car looks. I think it looks amazing. Kind of like a Corvette C8 went on a diet and just lost all of its muscle, instead gained a lot of edge to replace it. Like, this is a very edgy looking Corvette of sorts. And I actually really like this design overall. Quite very eye-catching. You want to know what it sounds like? You're welcome. The decals are probably the weakest link of this car. Most of them are very minimalist. If you like that, then more power to you. But they won't appeal to everyone, I don't think. So if you can recognize this car, then congratulations, you're nothing special. This was one of the boss cars from Chapter 5 Season 3. But now, it's customizable. In terms of its design alone, it's a pretty sturdy looking rugged car. Very Mad Max, of course. You know, right to fit in right with the Rex season. The 4 exhausts at the very back, which function as the booster. Looks kind of weird, I won't lie, but the ones on the sides do look really cool. And you got that big grin at the very front with the headlights. It definitely gives off a pretty gnarly facade. It's a pretty gnarly looking car, I'd say. The customizable decals it comes with, they're pretty basic, I guess. They're not great. But the non-customizable ones, they actually look really good. The V8 engine sound? It is really good. Actually, almost as good as the Dominus GTs. All things considered, it's a good thing they sold this in a starter pack for like $10. I don't think it would have been very appealing to buy this for 1500 V-Bucks. Especially during the actual Rex season itself, when there was already like 1 or 2 of these running around on the map.
Meme! Look at you. You who were once so proud. Go now and never return.
The most interesting thing about this car is that the rear bumper is basically stripped off. Like, the whole rear end is kind of slimmed down, isn't it? Missing a lot of junk at the back there. Like, the guy who designed this car is really channeling his twin-turbo racing Gallardo underground energy. Less weight! More power! His taillights look ugly. Like, are they supposed to hypnotize me? You all love everything about Chapter 5. Engine sound kind of looks... It kind of sounds like a Ferrari V8, but a bit lower pitched than usual. The few decals it has available, they look pretty good. It's a bit hard to make this car look good without using black somewhere though, whether on the trim or the decals. I've had a bit of trouble there. This is probably one of the less interesting licensed cars that's been added to Fortnite so far. I just feel like this is a bit of an odd or random choice for BMW to put in the game. I feel like the M3 or the M4 would have been more interesting, but this came straight from Rocket League. This was Psyonix's choice, not Epic's. It's mostly faithful to the real thing. The license plate and the rear diffuser being replaced with boosters looks weird though. Engine sound, it certainly sounds like a BMW. It also comes with a really dark looking iridescent wrap, which actually looks really good. But the other decals, they look like garbage. At least it's cheap, only costs 2,000 V-Bucks. It doesn't even have any usable blinkers. Typical.
Let's play a game of Spot the Difference. Can you see what looks different about this Octane? Can you?
Let's take a look at those rear lights, why don't we? Do they look more circular or something? What about that spoiler? It looks more streamlined and aggressive, doesn't it? Kinda does. How many headlights does it have? I think the normal one has 2. This one has 4. It's like a bug. With that bull bar, it's a bit thicker, doesn't it? Yeah? Looks thicker than May's thighs.
Well done, you just won the game. Here's a 2,800 V-Bucks card.
For real though, this is just a slightly different Octane. One that will be incompatible with all the different free decals that'll fit on the normal one. The one that you get for free, by the way. If you get those decals through challenges and stuff. They won't fit on this new Octane. Even if its own decals look good. That'll be $15, please. What a ripoff. At least mine looks good.
The fuck?
Just like the M240i, this is also a pretty random and odd choice that was made by Sonex, not Epic. There's not much I can say about the design. It's just as basic as the engine sound. It just exists out in lumpy space, floating out in lumpy space. Out of all the decals I've unlocked, they've always been pretty basic. I know there's more for it, but I'm not playing Rocket League for this thing. Shout out to Giggy's Lab for making this kick-ass custom decal for it though. Some people are saying this should be an SUV skin because it has 4 doors. And some people say it's a sports car. Some people say it's SUV! Sports car! SUV!
Shut the fuck up!
This is an SUV, it's not that big. It should be a case for Epic to add sedan skins to the game. Because, like, they added in a Dodge Charger not too long ago, and that also has 4 doors. And there are already sedans in the game. We had those back in Chapter 2, and Chapter 3, and Chapter 4. Yeah, we could easily put sedan skins in this game if Epic wanted. Epic, get onto it. Still no usable blinkers. Once again, another car I don't own. Very rare, of course. I'll try and judge based on what I can, when I can find. So, in contrast to the Nissan Fairlady Z RLE, this is an off-road spec of the BMW M1. It's pretty cool. It's got a little hood scoop on the front there. Got some usual off-road four-wheel drive roof rack stuff on the top. Got little light bars on the back. Pretty neat little spoiler, nothing special. This quad exhaust look. This quad exhaust definitely stand out. They almost look a bit cartoonish. Definitely fits in with Fortnite's art style though. This car kind of looks like a C4 Corvette, but with some 90s Japanese styling. Like, this is from an alternate timeline where Chevrolet was Japanese and it was New York that got nuked. Engine sound is completely identical to the Toyota Supra A80, the old one from the 90s, of course, that most people recognize. It's got some decals that are pretty good, and its overall design, it's pretty simplistic, but there's quite a lot of detail here that I like. It's a bit unremarkable overall, but it's decent. Now this is a kick-ass idea for a collab. Like this Nissan Skyline 034, this is probably one of the most iconic cars in movies and in pop culture in general. So bringing it over into Fortnite is just like kind of a no-brainer. And they executed it really well here, I gotta say. The engine sound is a bit lower pitched than how it sounds in the movie, but it still sounds really good. Still faithful to the real thing, of course, whether it's just a normal one or it's the Fast and Furious one specifically. The rear bumper is very different to how it looks in real life and in the movie. That's because of Rocket League, though. This thing came from Rocket League first. Plus, I actually prefer how this looks compared to real life because it's actually symmetrical. I mentioned this earlier, I don't like when exhausts are on the one side only, so having it be symmetrical is definitely a bonus for me at least. This thing also comes with like a ton of different decals as well. You got the one that's in the movie itself, and you actually got a customizable version of that wrap as well. There's also an iridescent wrap to a clean job. I love the description as well, by the way. The McLaren Senna? I think Epic did a really good job once again translating this thing into Fortnite. I know that's kind of like a given when it comes to licensed cars at this point. I've said that a few times now, but I kind of just have to applaud it every time because having these real-life collars in the game is always a special moment for me personally. The engine sound as well, it's also very faithful, like very accurate to the real thing. And even the boosters they had to chuck on there, they didn't try to conceal them completely like they did with the Nissan Z, but what they've done is they've blended them in subtly enough that you won't notice them most of the time, so I gotta applaud them for that. So when this thing first came out, they also included a bunch of Marvel themed decals and wheels, all of which look meticulously crafted. Like, you look at every one of these decals, they're just so well made, wow. And they come with wheels that accompany each one of them. Like, that is a lot for what you're getting for a 2800 V-Bucks. Like, yeah, this is a pretty good value car, I gotta say. At least when they released it during the Marvel season. It's entirely possible they might not bring those Marvel decals back at one point, but I don't know. For 2800 V-Bucks, you're getting a lot here for what you pay. So this car was added in Chapter 2 Remix as part of the headline with Snoop Dogg, who was the festival icon that started with this season. You could find these on the map as their own cars, not as customized whiplashes. Overall, this car looks pretty basic. Yeah, but it's got a unique vibe to it, being associated with Snoop Dogg and lowriders and all that. Engine sound is pretty basic, not much to say there. I don't think this car is worth 2,800 overall. It only comes with 3 decals by default, including this Winterfest themed one that they added in a while after its release. It looks pretty good though. I mean, all these decals look pretty good, but none of them are customizable, and without that in mind, the only customization you can do with this car is just changing the base color. There's no customizable decals. There's not a whole lot you can do with this car. I don't think it's worth 2,800, but it is decent. Yeah, not much to say there. Might be sounding like a broken record at this point, but just like many of the other collab cars, the Porsche 911 GT3 RS 992, very faithful to the real thing once again. Like, this is beautiful. All the different contrasty details they got going on here, on the back and the front and the sides, just like most of the other licensed cars. Yeah, the license plate booster looks like a mouth. Something I missed though on the older models is the older models of the Porsche 911 is the big smiles that they had. I still think the current one looks pretty good though, and unique though. It's kind of like my opinion on the Halo 4 shotgun. I really like the design of that thing, but I also really miss what made the older version, the Halo shotgun, iconic. The glowing iron sights in particular. Also, just look at all these decals. Oh, especially the non-customizable ones. You got Speed Sketch, which pays homage to the concept stage, you know, when they're putting pencil to paper. I remember the Ferrari did something like this a while back with the 812 Competitor Zone. And there's this other one which even alters the base color you've selected to look more brighter and more vibrant a bit. It actually looks really cool, I gotta say. Engine is a bit higher pitched than normal, but otherwise sounds much like the original overall. Did they get Alvin the Chipmunk to record this?